Good morning, viewers. The union budget is always more than just numbers. It shapes markets, livelihoods, and long term policy direction. To decode the key takeaways from the latest budget presented by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, we have with us Dr. Professor Nageshwar Garu, an expert analyst. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, SG.
So, sir, how would you describe this budget briefly?
The major problem with this budget is there are a lot of lofty claims, grandiose statements, which are obviously anybody has to appreciate. For example, there's an emphasis on manufacturing, there's emphasis on city economic regions. So nobody can dispute with that. But the problem comes is the devil lies in the detail. So government often makes very big claims about budgetary promises, budgetary schemes. Right. But what really happens is, are they really spending? I'll give you one example, Yashaswini. For example, there are 23 schemes under, with Prime Minister's name. I'm sure you will accept any budget should be seen in terms of what are the real allocations and what is actually spent. Right. So other than the allocations and actual spending, the budget grandiose statements, lofty claims only merit headlines in the media. The reason why I'm telling is, in this budget there is a talk about encouraging manufacturing. Right. It is certainly good by any means, because India's share in the manufacturing has either been stagnant or declining. India's manufacturing share in India's total employment is declining. So to face the global headwinds, we need to have very strong manufacturing sector. The experience of China, South Korea, Germany, Japan tell this, so there is no dispute about it. So similarly, if there is any other emphasis, we have no quarrel with that kind of an emphasis. 3 kartavyas, 7 areas, so they want to develop the city economic region. All these grandiose statement, policy claims, absolutely nobody can quarrel with them. But the problem comes is, what do you actually spend? Right. So, for example, I'll give you an example. PM internship scheme. I'm sure you might still remember last budget, which was made, which was announced with a great fanfare to provide skills to the people. Right. So, do you know the budget has allocated over 10,000 crores for that? Do you know how much was spent? Hardly 500 crores. So 95% of the allocation was not spent. This is evident if you look at the revised estimates for the financial year 2025-26 submitted along with this budget. So that is an example. I'll give you another example. Jal Jeevan Mission, providing drinking water to every household. Right. It is a great ambition. Absolutely no quarrel with that kind of an ambition. But what was allocated and what was spent? 67,000 crores were allocated to Jal Jeevan Mission in the last year's budget. Do you know what was spent in the financial year? That to revise estimates only. Actuals will come later. Okay. Hardly 17,000 crores were spent. Almost all the schemes named after Prime Minister have seen a cut in spending. So at the moment you made, there are 191 schemes. So the total allocations for all the centrally sponsored schemes is, if you look at the expenditure has fallen short of allocation by 30%. Whopping. So when 100 rupees is allocated in the budget last year, only hardly 70 rupees were spent. As I told you, in the case of PM internship, hardly 5% spent. So this is the actual state of the budget. So when we see the budget, we'll have to see the actual spending. So that will come only after 2 years. So what is now touted in the budget is only an estimate for the 2026-27. So when will we get the actual spending? Only after 2 years. Now with this budget of 26-27, we have the actual for 24-25. So what really happens is, for the sake of publicity, finance minister speeches make very big claims, very good sound bites, and ultimately they don't spend. So this is the challenge. For example, 17 out of 23 social sector schemes
Okay.
received less money than what was allocated. These include schemes like PM Poshan. In relation to scheme like PM Kisan, the spending was almost the same last year. But if you look at 17 out of the 23 social sector schemes, so the spending has been actually cut only in relation to two schemes, PM Garib Anna Kalyan Yojana and Narega. The money is increased, but that too Narega, this present scheme Vikasit Bharat Ji Ram Ji is completely different from Naroga. Even if money is given, no guarantee that it will be spent because the scheme has lost its character. So my point is, you make lot of claims, lot of statements in the budget, but what is reality? The reality is actually it is not being spent. The reason for that is there is no increase in the budget size. I'll give an example. Ministry of Agriculture, last 2 years, compared to 2024-25 to 26-27, do you know what was the increase? Hardly poultry 628 crores.
Okay.
So in this budget it has actually come down. So in 24-25 to 26-27, there is an increase of only 628 crores. Compared to the last year, there is a decline. So look at, can anybody say agriculture is not important? So Ministry of Agriculture budget, I am giving you the figures. For the crop insurance, 2,200 crore decline in the last 2 years. For crop insurance, PM Kisan, 2,600 crore decline.
Okay.
So compared to in the last 2 years. So what we have to see is the actual size of the budget is almost the same. For example, this time around 54 lakh crores is spent.
Okay.
There is hardly any increase compared to the last year's budget. So the reason for that is it's only a marginal increase which will be eaten away by inflation. The reason is government has not come out with any bold taxation measures. So there is no question of additional money coming to the government. When there is no additional money coming to the government, where can government spend? And on the other hand, after Operation Sindhu, the defense spending has increased substantially. Nearly 1 lakh crores has been given to defense sector in addition to what was given last year, compared to what was given last year. So obviously as a result, agriculture, rural development and many other social sector and key developmental sectors receive lesser funding this year compared to the last year. That's the reason if you watch the finance minister speaking, she has not mentioned any allocations.
Right.
There are hardly any worthwhile allocation figures in the finance minister's speech.
True. So, sir, are you saying that this budget hasn't done enough to address the inflation and the rising living costs?
Well, the problem with this budget is inflation, the government says, is under control. So hardly 2% inflation. So when the government claims that inflation is under control, where is the question of further measures to control it? So the government is not acknowledging the fact that the headline inflation numbers are different from what is the common man's experience in the field. So the problem here is when you don't acknowledge the problem, where is the question of spending on that? So cost of living does not include only inflation like food inflation, etc. For example, middle class in India is facing a big problem of increasing cost of education of children, cost of health of children.
True.
So the cost of accommodation, housing. Well, where is the question of addressing these issues? So, Indian middle class certainly received some kind of relief last time when income tax has been, slabs have been changed. Well, today over 12 lakh rupees, up to 12 lakh rupees there is no income tax, including the standard deduction. Anybody having an income of 12.75 lakh did not pay income tax, but these measures were given earlier, not in this budget. So GST also, last Diwali the government has substantially reduced GST on many items because the 12% slab has been done away with. So after that income tax relief and GST relief, which was given much before the current budget, there is nothing in this budget to offer for the middle class, for the people who are reading under inflation.
Right. So I think we talked about agriculture, then we moved to the inflation. So maybe let's talk about the youth. Do you think the proposed measures in this budget are going to create any kind of jobs for the youth?
Well, the problem is there are certain measures like emphasis on creative economy. So 15,000 schools will have content creation labs. So, I'm not telling some of the sectors there's an emphasis on jobs. But the question is, look at the last year's budget. You will be surprised to know that already 40%, there's a cut of 40%. So when 100 rupees is allocated for youth-related programs last budget, 60 was spent, 40 was not even spent. So unless a substantial reorientation of the economy takes place, employment will not be significantly increased, because you have to increase the skills. As I already told you, in the PM internship program, only 5% of the allocation was spent. So there are certain measures, as I told you, emphasis on the creative economy. There are certain, and the government says there are 12 lakh crores will be spent on the capital expenditure, but creating infrastructure. Well, certainly infrastructure creation certainly improves jobs. There's no dispute about it. But the major intervention in the employment was the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which was introduced during the UPA regime. But that has been substantially changed now. Well, the government has increased the budget for the successor to Narendra, the Vikasit Bharat G Ramji scheme. 96,000 crores were allocated. But the problem is the scheme is completely different. So the National Employment Rural Guarantee Program is essentially demand-driven saturation scheme, which essentially means if anybody comes with a demand for work, the government is obligated, it is an obligation on the part of the government to provide work. So some of the state governments were very, very proactive and got the benefit. Today what has happened is the share of the central government in this altered scheme is reduced to 60%, and the other problem is, well, this is not a demand-driven scheme. The government will notify the regions and areas where the scheme will be implemented. There can be a lot of political biases in implementation scheme. So though the money has been allocated, more money has been allocated, but given the change character of the scheme, that makes hardly any difference. So there are certain cosmetic measures in improving employment. I don't see any major substantial push towards the job creation.
Okay. So I think we were talking about the infrastructure, sir, in the previous response also. So I understand that there is a heavy push in the infrastructure. So do you think that this push is sustainable in the long term?
Well, whether it is sustainable or unsustainable, we'll have to spend on infrastructure. There's no other option for us, and this government has been emphasizing infrastructure for quite some time. Not only this budget, even the earlier budgets have also given a lot of push to the infrastructure. So, like railways, roadways, airports, similar the pipeline gas infrastructure. So infrastructure has always been an emphasis, and unless we create an infrastructure, we cannot we cannot get investment. Obviously, if any private person wants to set up an industry, he will ask for infrastructure. If you do not have good transport, good electricity, quality power, affordable power, water, if you want to have an export oriented, you need to have ports. So nobody can deny the importance of infrastructure in transforming the country. So there is important, that kind of emphasis was there and is there in this budget also. So in this budget 12 lakh crores have been spent. So the sustainability comes, you're right, in some of the private sector led infrastructure projects proved to be unsustainable, and banks have to bear the burden of loans.
Right.
But infrastructure has to be kept pace with this, no doubt about it. But the kind is, it has to be backed up by putting money in the hands of the people. If you don't put money in the hands of the people, and if you just give infrastructure, the problem comes is it will be underutilized. For example, I will tell you, you create airports. left, right, and center. But if you don't have, if you create people who can spend money to travel by air, what is the use of having an airport? So it's good that you need airports, but many airports in India are underutilized. You'll be surprised to know, because of the fact that you don't have sufficient air travelers there. There is a significant increase in the domestic air travel, but still the infrastructure is higher than the demand. So we'll have to balance between creating infrastructure that is very, very vital for a sound economic growth and job creation with the people who have the money in their hands. Ultimately, who will these infrastructures will be utilized. So that gap is there. So supply side there is a good effort, but demand side there needs a lot needs to be done.
Okay, sir, as part of this, can you cite some example of an infrastructure which was developed in the past 10 years which created a positive impact or change?
Well, certainly, if you look at the air, there is a massive increase in the domestic air travel in India. So because of, well, still there are bottlenecks, like we do not have enough airlines, so we have a monopoly, duopoly, Indigo and Air India, and the kind of disaster it has created, we have seen.
Right.
So the problem in the infrastructure is there is a problem of duopoly and triopoly. Look at any infrastructure, look at the digital payment system. There are one or two companies which are dominating.
Right.
So look at the telecom sector. Jio and Airtel dominate the most of the telecom infrastructure services. Look at the air travel. Indigo and Air India controls 85%. So if we create a duopolistic structures that goes duopoly or triopolistic structures that goes against the interest of the people, that's number one problem. Second problem is this lot of infrastructure is created in public-private partnership mode and even in the private sector. Look at the road infrastructure. There's a massive increase in the road infrastructure,
right.
But there is an unbelievably very high burden of toll tax. Nobody knows why this toll tax is so high. So there is a very good emphasis on the rail infrastructure. We have seen Vande Bharat trains and all that, but there is a less amount spent on railway safety. As a result, many avoidable accidents are staring at us, India's railway story. So infrastructure is expanding, so you need to create a proper economic system and money in the hands of the people who can effectively utilize that infrastructure.
Right. So, sir, do you think that this budget strikes a real balance between economic growth and the fiscal discipline?
Well, my point is, well, there is, if you look at the numbers, this certainly, the fiscal consolidation, what we call, is high on the agenda of the government. So, for example, the fiscal deficit last year is contained at 4.4%,
right,
and is now contained at 4.3%.
True.
But this is called the fiscal consolidation. But at what cost? That's more important. If you aim at fiscal consolidation by slashing the allocations for people-oriented schemes, then that fiscal consolidation goes against the interest of the people. For example, you need to, what do you mean by fiscal consolidation? Fiscal consolidation essentially mean to ensure that your expenditure is within your income. That is what is called the fiscal consolidation. You do not live beyond your means. That is called fiscal consolidation. So, but if you reduce your essential spending and may ensure that you live within your means, that goes against the welfare of the family or welfare of the country. For example, PM Poshan, which includes ICDS, Integrated Child Development Service like Anganwadis, etc., etc., and when the money spent was cut for PM Poshan. So you achieve fiscal consolidation, but at the cost of the pregnant women and child welfare. For example, Jal Jeevan Mission, there is a reduced allocation for that, reduced spending for that, as I already explained.
Right.
Well, that is good for fiscal consolidation, but bad for the people. So people access to safe drinking water is very essential. So similarly, my point is fiscal consolidation by reducing expenditure on agriculture, rural development, so social services, public services, goes against the welfare of the people. So instead you should increase your revenues, reduce the wasteful expenditure, and then achieve the fiscal consolidation. So when you are spending on the security of the nation, you have to spend on the security of the people.
Right.
So security of the nation is important, but security of the people is also important. The problem with this is the debt to GDP ratio is also under control compared to advanced countries like US, Japan. You have 250% debt. The Japanese debt is 250% of the GDP. In the case of the United States, is 123% to 125%. In the case of UK, it is 110%. Okay. Germany is only one country among the G7 nations which has a debt below the GDP. So we have done certainly better than that. So on the macroeconomic indicators, like economic growth, still it is estimated to be around 6.8 to 7.2%. So inflation control, current account deficit under control, fiscal deficit under control, all that is true. Well, these numbers certainly tell a great story about fiscal consolidation. But concern is by increasing the revenue without affecting the people, by taxing the super rich, by reducing the wasteful expenditure, if you ensure fiscal consolidation, that is good for the people. But fiscal consolidation by cutting down on public spending is certainly disastrous.
So, sir, who do you think has benefited with this budget and whom do you think are left out?
Well, that is a very big question. There is everything for everybody, any budget. When the government of India spends 54 lakh crores, how can I say somebody is left out? So that I don't make such a sweeping generalization. So, but my point is more than that, what are the challenges facing Indian economy? So they have to be addressed. For example, rupee value is falling.
Right.
So it has come down to 92 rupees. Well, the economic survey simply says we are not responsible for that. Domestic factors have nothing to do with this. It is essentially due to global headwinds. So the moment economic survey makes such a claim, you can't expect budget to suggest anything. If you look at the budget, nothing serious to stem the decline of rupee. And this decline of rupee is coming at a time when dollar is losing its value. In 2025, dollar value has come down by 10%. Euro has increased by 12%. So there is in Indian rupee is the worst performing currency in the entire Asia. Okay. So my question is, if when GDP is good, current account deficit under control, fiscal deficit under control, inflation under control, we have very good, comfortable foreign exchange reserves. If everything is fine, then why should rupee fall? So the blame is on FDI, foreign investors pulling out. I do agree. In last year, around $18.9 billion of foreign portfolio investment have been withdrawn from Indian economy in 2025. Even in January, around $4 billion of foreign investors have gone. Well, I do agree with that. That factor is certainly there. But more than that, the inexplicable reasons have to be addressed. Why is Indian rupee declining? Can't the government do anything to stem the tide? Because fall in the value of rupee hurts importers in a very big way. I don't know how much it benefits the exporter because exports are seriously under challenge due to global geo-economic tensions that are prevailing in the world. But more than that, the imports will be seriously affected. India is a very big importing nation. Fortunately, the oil prices are under control. Otherwise, the nation would have been facing a very serious problem. Many of our exports are also import intensive, which means to export something, we import a lot. For example, we export pharmaceuticals, but we import the active pharmaceutical ingredients that go into the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, production of pharmaceuticals, like the raw materials and intermediate, we import a lot of them, we import from China. So my question is, what has been done in this budget to address this problem of falling rupee? Unfortunately, this has not been a serious issue. I'll give you another example. Well, this budget talks about city economic regions. Very good, because urbanization is no longer seen as a drag on the economy. Urbanization is increasingly perceived as an effort towards inclusive growth. So there is no doubt about it. There is a great emphasis across the world on cities, and we appreciate this budget talking about city economic regions. But my question again is, what is the biggest problem in cities today? Everybody will tell air pollution. Go to Delhi, you have a serious problem of air pollution. World Bank data says around 1.7 million in deaths that the air pollution is contributing to. I don't say that they are dying only because of bad air, but certainly air pollution is contributing to the death of 1.7 million people. This is a World Bank report. I'll give you another Dalberg report. Says India is losing $260 billion of income due to air pollution, which is around 6% of GDP. The Center for Clean Air Energy of Indian Statistical Institute estimates that the economic loss of air pollution is around 6% of GDP. We have seen Geeta Gopinath, a very renowned economist, making this claim in the Davos meeting.
Right.
So my concern is, well, you will be surprised to know the finance minister did not even utter the word air pollution.
Okay.
That too sitting in Delhi, presenting the parliament presenting the budget in parliament, which is in Delhi. Unfortunately, the finance minister did not even think it necessary to utter the word air pollution once. So can you create a city economic region without addressing this serious challenge of air pollution? So this is the major problem. So the problem is not, no, I am not accusing that the budget doesn't benefit everybody. So when you spend 54 lakh crores, certainly everybody will get something or the other. So how can I say that this budget doesn't benefit anybody? So such sweeping generalization is absolutely unacceptable. But some of the serious challenges that facing the country's economy need to be addressed.
So when you see some of the important challenges that the country is facing needs to be addressed. So I think the budget did not address anything regarding the impact on rupee and all, is what I understand. So what is another opportunity that you see as being missed in this budget?
Well, budget, essentially we should understand budget is not the be all and end all of financial fiscal policy. Budget is only one instrument. I can't say budget should be, there is some effort to benefit exports, but exports are not totally determined by the budget alone. We have several global factors that contribute into the budget. But my concern again is the structural shift that's taking place. So the social spending, there is a significant decline in social spending, and social spending burden is increasingly pushed onto the states. Today state governments spend more on development and welfare than Government of India. So if you look at the revenues, 40% states account for 40% of the total governmental revenue, which includes state and central. But their development and welfare burden is 60%. So the states are made to face a disproportionately higher burden of ensuring welfare in the country, ensuring development in the country. On the contrary, the allocation for the states are declining. Today in this budget, the finance minister talks about implementation of the 16th Finance Commission and says I have given 1.4 lakh crores for states. But that hides a lot of figures. For example, if you look at all the transfers from the center to the state, Finance Commission transfers is only one stream. The other stream is the so there are centrally sponsored schemes, etc., etc. There are several streams. If you look at the total transfers of center to the states, there has been a shortfall of 2,03,801 crore in the revised estimates compared to the budget estimates. What it means for the common man is what was promised in the last year's budget and what has actually accrued to the states. If you look at the figures, there is a gap of 2,03,801 crores. There is a massive adverse impact on the states. And this time it has been further come down. 59,456 crores have been, these transfers to states have come down. this will have, and you have also discrimination against the opposition ruled states. So this incapacitated the state government from spending on the people's welfare. As I already told you, the growing burden on states, the welfare and social spending burden is being thrust upon the states, and when the states' revenues do not increase. You look at also the gender budgeting. Gender budget, there has been a sharp decline of 51,141 crores. So when we analyze the budget, we should not say budget has not done anything to anybody. That's absolutely ridiculous. Budget certainly does something to everybody, and it does everything to something to everybody. So the question is, instead of a too vague and general conclusions, we have to analyze the details. So the devil lies in the details. That's the reason I said. So overall, budget makes a lot of claims, a lot of announcements, a lot of pronouncements, a lot of vision statements. But when it comes, the budget is essentially a statement of revenue and expenditure. So it has to be seen in terms of revenue and expenditure only.
When we talk about the commodity markets, how do you think the commodities like gold, oil, or any other metal are going to react to this budget?
Well, gold and silver, they are reacting, nobody knows their trajectory.
Okay.
So it's not advisable to speak much on the trajectory of the gold and silver prices, because they are not essentially dependent on the budget.
Okay.
What budget can maximum do is import duty. Other than that, the budget will not have any impact on gold and silver. Gold and silver prices are impacted by the geopolitics and geoeconomics.
Okay.
So they are not impacted by the budget as such, other than the import duty. But quite an interesting observation is the stock markets. Stock markets have immediately collapsed after the budget. Look at the stock market. There is a massive fall in both indices, the Sensex and the Nifty. The reason for that is this budget tries to contain the speculative trading. In fact, the finance minister does a good thing also there. Mm-hmm. She has increased the security transaction tax on futures and options.
Right.
The STT on futures has been increased by 150%, and STT on options has increased by 50%. So the stock markets is actually blackmailing the government. It immediately responded in a very big negative way to these proposals. Why the government is doing? Government is right in doing it. So you need to curb the speculative trading, short-term trading, because there is a structural shift in the Indian stock market. There are 21 crore demat accounts in India. There is a massive inflow of funds into mutual funds, especially the systematic investment plan. So there is a trend towards long-term investing in stock market. And the government is right by encouraging that and by discouraging short-term trading and speculative trading. So the increase in the short-term transaction, the security transaction is a good thing, but the stock markets have reacted very negatively to that. So we'll have to look at how the stock market look at. But the commodity market is extremely difficult to tell, because budget have a little impact on that. They are impacted more by the level of fear, uncertainty in the global economy.
Okay. So we spoke about agriculture, increasing infrastructure, stock markets, equities, and I think commodity markets, everything, the employment. So as a common citizen, I want to understand what is my one key takeaway with this budget.
The one key takeaway is budget. There is no direct day by day the relationship the common man has in the budget is increasingly taken away. So, for example, what does the common man look at budget essentially? The common man looks at taxes. Am I right?
Right.
So, income direct taxes, hardly anything is done on income tax for the last 10 years, and last time they have done a massive change.
Right.
Around 1 lakh crore benefit has been given. So this budget nobody even expects anything more also. Look at the GST. GST is out of budget. Indirect taxes, GST is the main thing.
Right.
There are of course excise duties like on on petroleum and oil product. Well, that has been already linked to global market, and hardly it is not even part of the budget these days. The problem with the government of India doing all this is they are increasing the surcharges and levied on cesses and surcharges rather than excess duties. So cesses and surcharges need not be shared with the states. So the government deliberately increasing the non-shareable taxes and duties, and as a result the government of India need not share with the state governments. So for example, today in this budget also Finance Minister talks about 41% share to the states, but actually in reality states are getting around 33%. So the problem with the budget is a lot of things are not transparent in the budget. I'll give you an example.
Right.
But Finance Minister says we are accepting the 16th Finance Commission recommendation that 41% of central government tax revenues will be shared with the states. But it hides the fact that only 33% is given to states, because when you look at cesses and surcharges, which are not shared with the states. So the problem with the common man, lot of things are not said in the budget. For example, this budget is for future, for next year.
Right.
So what is budgeted is not spent. I already gave you a lot of examples about that. What is budget is not actually spent. That's one problem.
Right.
Number two problem is the budget hides many things rather than tells that. So the problem, the common man, and a lot of budgetary things are couched in fiscal jargon, which common man hardly understands. Lot of things which are directly related to common man are delinked from the budget, like the petrol energy taxes, like the GST, indirect taxes, like so they are delinked from the budget as such. So what can common man look for in the budget when many things are delinked from the budget? Well, the overall dimensions of like macroeconomic indicators, infra spending. So big policy statement, that is something. So the emotional connect of the common man with the budget has lapsed. Okay. So as a result, you don't have much enthusiasm in the budget these days also.
Totally agree, sir. Thank you so much for those wonderful insights from the latest budget.
Thank you, Yashaswini. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us today.